Welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving into ancient Rome, a period just overflowing with conflict and political upheaval,
Yeah.
a period that really had just a huge impact on European history.
Yeah, definitely.
We're going to be talking about, these daring maneuvers and clashing
Oh,
armies.
yeah.
And of course, figures like Julius Caesar,
Of course.
Pompey the Great, and
Yes.
Cicero, all these figures who were just caught in this power struggle that would just totally reshape Western civilizations. Some
Yeah.
really exciting stuff.
Well, for anyone who's into military history, it's like a treasure trove.
Yeah.
You've got strategy, you've got ambition, you've got these unforeseen consequences, tiny little decisions that snowball into these huge events. But to really get it, we need to kind of set the scene, right? We're talking about the Roman Republic and all these tensions that are simmering under the surface.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. I mean, I know the Republic was already kind of like showing some cracks, right?
Yeah.
So, what was the situation like before these big, titanic figures we're going to talk about even came onto the scene?
Imagine a system that was built for balance,
Yeah.
but it's starting to buckle under the weight of ambition and these personal rivalries.
Yeah.
That's the Roman Republic in a nutshell.
Right.
You've got this complex structure, right? You've got the Senate, assemblies, elected officials.
Right.
But then you've also got these powerful generals,
Oh, yeah.
like Caesar, like Pompey the Great, commanding these loyal armies, each of them carving out their own little, sphere of influence.
So it's not just like political maneuvering, right? There's like a real military dimension to this whole power struggle.
Absolutely. It's like a powder keg, right?
Yeah.
And one of the key things to remember is that Rome had this tradition. They actually forbade armed forces within Italy itself. It was
Right.
meant to protect the heart of the republic, from these military strongmen.
Yeah, that makes sense. But knowing Caesar, I bet that didn't stop him.
You would be right about that.
Yeah.
Caesar decides to cross the Rubicon River. This is 49 BC.
Right.
And he brings his legions with him. It was like a line in the sand. It was a challenge to the Senate. It was a gamble, a calculated gamble, I'll grant you.
Yeah.
But it ignited the Roman Civil War.
So let's talk about that gamble. What made crossing the Rubicon so significant? He basically just walked right into the lion's den, didn't he?
He did. It was bold. It was decisive, sent shockwaves through the entire Roman world. And because of that rule, no armies in Italy. Rome itself was defenseless. The Senate, Pompey included, they were caught totally flat-footed, forced to flee.
Wow. Talk about a power move. Just one decision completely changed the game. So Caesar's on the move, the Senate's in chaos,
Yeah.
and we've got another major player entering the scene, Marcus Tullius Cicero. Now, he wasn't a general like Caesar or Pompey,
Right.
but he was still a force to be reckoned with.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Cicero, he was this renowned orator, brilliant legal mind, a staunch, diehard believer in the Roman Republic. He climbed the ranks, became consul, the highest elected office, and he did it all without coming from, the traditional Roman aristocracy.
That's right. He was a new man, as they called him back then.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that made his rise to power even more remarkable.
You bet it did. Came from the equestrian class. Wealthy, sure. Influential, yeah.
Okay.
But not the same social standing as those old patrician families.
Right, right.
Cicero, his success, it shook things up, and his eloquence, his legal skills, they made him a major voice in Roman politics.
Okay. So we've got Caesar making these bold military moves, and we've got Cicero, a champion of the Republic, just trying to hold things together. I'm sensing a collision course here. Where did Cicero stand when this civil war broke out?
Cicero, he was really troubled by all this, the growing power of Caesar and of Pompey, too. He saw them both as threats. Threats to that traditional balance of power he thought was essential for the Republic to survive.
So he was stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Exactly. He tries to mediate, tries to find a peaceful solution. It fails.
Of course.
And as the conflict escalates, he's forced to choose a side. And this decision, it's tied up with this whole political philosophy, a philosophy rooted in this idea of a mixed government.
I've heard about this, but I'll need a refresher.
Mm.
Can you explain what Cicero meant by a mixed government?
Sure. He believed the best form of government, it's like a blend. You take elements of monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy, mix them together. That's how you stop any one group from becoming too powerful. That's how you make sure you have balance between the different classes.
So he was advocating for a system of checks and balances even way back then. It's fascinating to think how these ideas from ancient Rome still resonate in modern political systems.
It really is. It's a testament to the enduring power of Roman political thought.
Yeah.
Welcome back to our deep dive into ancient Rome. Last time we left off, Cicero was facing this impossible choice. Support Caesar, support Pompey, who to back in this Roman civil war.
Yeah, it sounded like a no-win situation, really. I mean,
Hmm.
he's dedicated to the Republic, but both Caesar and Pompey, they seem like threats to the system he's trying to protect. So what was it? What made Cicero finally choose sides?
Well, for Cicero, it really boiled down to two things. Rule of law, the authority of the Senate, that was his bedrock.
Okay.
And he ultimately sided with Pompey, saw him as, the lesser of two evils, maybe, the best hope for preserving that traditional order. Even though, honestly, he had his doubts about Pompey's ambition, too.
Right. But could Pompey's forces actually stand up to Caesar's legions? I mean,
Mm.
Caesar's got this reputation, right?
Yeah.
A brilliant military strategist.
On paper, Pompey had the advantage. He had the Senate backing him up, control of tons of territory, a bigger army by far.
Okay.
But Caesar, well, the Caesar had a habit of defying the odds,
Yeah, he did.
pulling off these audacious maneuvers.
This is where it gets really juicy for military history fans.
Mm.
What were the key strategies going on? Did Caesar's tactical brilliance really win the day?
It definitely played a part. While Pompey is gathering his forces in Greece, Caesar, he makes this lightning strike into Spain. Takes out Pompey's allies, secures his rear.
Wow.
Shows you how Caesar understood logistics, willing to take calculated risks.
Classic Caesar, always thinking ahead. So what happened next?
After shoring up his position, Caesar crosses the Adriatic, goes head-to-head with Pompey in Greece, and this leads to the Battle of Pharsalus, 48 BC, major turning point in the war.
Oh, I bet. So this was a clash of the Titans, right?
Yeah.
Did Caesar just, overwhelm Pompey with sheer force?
It was a clash of titans, no doubt, but Caesar's victory, it wasn't just brute force. He used some clever tactics, exploited Pompey's expectations. For instance, he knew Pompey loved those cavalry charges.
Right.
So Caesar, he forms this special unit, armed with spears, basically an anti-cavalry phalanx.
Wow, that's out of the box. A wall of spears versus charging horses.
Yeah.
How'd that work out?
Decisive victory for Caesar. Pompey's cavalry routed, his army chaos, crushing defeat for the Pompeian forces.
That's a clear sign things are shifting. What happened to Pompey after this?
Well, his army's shattered, so Pompey, he flees to Egypt, seeking refuge, hoping to regroup. Figured he'd be safe in Egypt because of his past connections there.
Ah, Egypt. Land of pharaohs and pyramids. But it sounds like Pompey walked into another political mess.
He did. Egypt at the time, ruled by the young pharaoh, Ptolemy III,
Okay.
and his very ambitious half-sister, Cleopatra VII.
Right.
They're in their own power struggle, and Pompey arriving throws a whole new wrench into the works.
So Pompey comes looking for safety, ends up caught between these warring siblings. What happens next?
Ptolemy's advisors, they see a chance to get in good with Caesar, so they lure Pompey ashore, pretend they're going to help him, and then they assassinate him.
Oh, wow. Betrayal. Caesar must have been serious, even though Pompey was his enemy.
You're right. Caesar arrives in Egypt not long after. He is not happy. Hard to say if it was Roman honor, maybe a bit of respect for his fallen rival, but that assassination, huge ripple effects on history.
And this is where the story takes a turn, right? Cleopatra makes her grand entrance.
Exactly. Cleopatra, seeing her chance, has herself smuggled into Caesar's presence, famously wrapped in a carpet.
That's one way to make an entrance. Sounds like a woman who knows how to seize an opportunity.
She did. And Caesar, he's captivated by her intelligence, her ambition, her charm. He decides to back her claim to the throne, sides with her against her brother, Ptolemy III.
Incredible. From desperate escape to power play, all because of the personalities and ambitions of these historical figures. It feels like there's something more to Caesar's involvement here, more than just military or political strategy. What was it about Cleopatra? What made her so captivating, even to someone as powerful as Caesar?
That's the question, isn't it? The question that keeps historians up at night. Hard to separate the political from the personal. But Cleopatra, she was a force in her own right, no doubt about that. Highly intelligent, a master diplomat, spoke multiple languages. She knew how to use what she had to gain influence, to get what she wanted.
So Caesar supporting Cleopatra. Seems like that had massive consequences. For Egypt, for his own fate.
Oh, absolutely. But before we get into those consequences, let's take a step back, look at the bigger picture. The Roman Civil War, this wasn't just a clash of personalities. This was a seismic shift in the balance of power in Rome.
Good point. So as we head into the final part of our deep dive, what are the key takeaways here? From all this conflict, all this upheaval, what lessons can we still learn from these events today?
One thing that stands out, even the best laid plans, they can be completely blown up by the unexpected, by unpredictable people. Caesar's ambition, Pompey's mistakes, Cleopatra's cunning, they all shaped history. And we also see how personal relationships, individual choices, they can have these ripple effects,
Mm.
impacting entire nations, entire empires.
It's amazing how these individual stories come together to create these pivotal moments. Can't wait to hear what happened next, especially that the Cleopatra's in the picture.
Well, we'll delve into the fallout from Caesar's intervention in Egypt and what happened when Cleopatra took the throne in the final part of our episode. So stay with us.
Welcome back to our deep dive. We left off with Cleopatra, right? She made quite the entrance,
You did?
secured Caesar's support, took control of Egypt, but I can't imagine it was all smooth sailing from there.
Not exactly. Caesar's backing definitely gave her a leg up, but her position was still pretty shaky.
You're right.
She had rivals within Egypt who weren't too happy about her cozying up to Rome.
Yeah, I bet.
And even back in Rome, some of Caesar's own people weren't thrilled about it either.
I can imagine Caesar was already married and then having a very public affair with a foreign queen. Probably didn't go over well with everybody back home.
Not exactly a popular move.
So what were some of the immediate challenges Cleopatra faced after Caesar left Egypt?
Well, her biggest problem was her younger brother, Ptolemy XIV. He still had a bunch of supporters in the Egyptian court. And there was a lot of resentment over Caesar meddling in Egyptian affairs. People saw Cleopatra as a Roman puppet.
So even with Caesar on her side, she had a tough road ahead. How did she manage to navigate all of that?
Cleopatra was a smart cookie. She knew how to play the game.
Yeah.
She consolidated her power by making alliances with the right people in the court.
Smart.
And she cultivated this image of herself as a true pharaoh connected to the traditions of ancient Egypt.
Interesting. So she was playing both sides, appeasing Rome, but also asserting her own power.
Exactly. It was a delicate balancing act.
So how did her relationship with Caesar change during this time? Did it stay purely political, or was there some genuine affection there?
It's hard to know for sure, but it seems like it was a mix of both. They were both drawn to knowledge. They loved art and culture, and they both understood power dynamics really well.
Right.
And of course, they had a son together, Caesarion.
Right. Caesarion, that name itself is loaded. A son of Caesar, even if he was born out of wedlock, that could really shake things up in Rome.
Oh, absolutely. Caesarion's very existence was a problem for some people in Rome. They saw him as a threat to the Republic.
I bet.
And for Cleopatra, he was the key to continuing her dynasty, securing her legacy.
So we see how these personal relationships can have these massive political consequences. So what about the strategic implications of Caesar getting involved in Egypt? We talked before about Egypt being the breadbasket of the Mediterranean. Did Caesar's actions secure Rome's access to Egyptian grain?
They did. By supporting Cleopatra, Caesar made sure that the grain kept flowing to Rome.
That's huge.
It was essential for keeping the peace back in Rome. The people depended on that Egyptian grain.
So Caesar's time in Egypt had a lasting impact both on his personal life and on the future of Rome.
Absolutely. And it's worth remembering that even though his actions in Egypt were good for Rome in the short term, they ultimately contributed to his downfall.
How so?
Well, his growing power, his relationship with Cleopatra and Caesarion's existence, they all created enemies for him back in Rome.
So even as Caesar was winning battles overseas, the stage was being set for his demise back home. It's a reminder that even the most powerful people are vulnerable to the whims of politics and ambition.
Exactly. And this brings us to the most intriguing question of all. Knowing what we know now about how his actions would eventually lead to conflict with the Senate, was Caesar's involvement in Egypt, his support for Cleopatra, his relationship with her, was it all just driven by cold ambition? Or did he actually have genuine feelings for her?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? History gives us some hints, but ultimately we can only speculate about what was really going on between them. But one thing's for sure, their intertwined fates had a profound impact on the course of history, shaping the future of both Egypt and Rome.
It really shows you the power of individual choices, how unpredictable history can be. Actions taken in a single moment, even those driven by personal feelings, can have consequences that ripple through time-shaping empires and leaving their mark on generations to come.
It's incredible to think about how one decision, one chance meeting, or even a love affair can have such a huge impact on the grand scheme of things. This has been a fascinating deep dive. Thanks for joining us. Until next time,